At my wedding, my parents looked at my child and said, "Let's not pretend he's part of this family." My siblings nodded. My son's smile vanished. But my fiancé took one step forward, raised his glass and said something that made my parents scream. My parents looked at my son on my wedding day and said, loud enough for others to hear, "Let's not pretend he's part of this family." That was the moment everything broke. Steve was just 8. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He had this little habit of straightening his tie every few minutes because he wanted to look grown up for the wedding photos. He loved Ryan, my fiancé, and had been excited for months, practicing how to walk down the aisle, helping me pick songs, even asking if he could call Ryan Dad after the wedding. He believed the day was about all of us becoming a family. And in one sentence, my parents crushed that for him. My siblings were there too. My older brother Ben and my sister Katie. They were both dressed to perfection, fake smiling through the ceremony like they hadn't been actively trying to convince me for years that Steve wasn't really family. Katie once told me straight out that no real man would want a woman with a kid. Ben used to say Steve was a side effect I'd have to live with. I thought they'd keep their mouths shut at the wedding. But no. As Steve stood near the guest tables, beaming and trying to wave to my mom, she looked him up and down and said those words like they weren't cutting a child in half. "Let's not pretend he's part of this family." My dad didn't even blink. Katie rolled her eyes. Ben shook his head and muttered, "This whole thing is just sad." I saw Steve's face fall in real time. His shoulders dropped. His hands slowly went down. He sat back in his chair without saying anything, eyes on the floor. He didn't touch his juice or the little plate of wedding snacks we made sure to have just for him. I saw Ryan catch it too. He'd been across the room talking with his cousin, holding a glass of champagne. The music had just started to pick up for the toast. Our best man was walking toward the mic. But Ryan didn't wait. He stepped forward, lifted his glass, didn't smile. He looked straight at my parents' table. I didn't know what he was going to say. Part of me thought he'd ignore it, keep the peace. My entire life I've been trained to keep the peace with them, to pretend, to let them make their comments and insults, then smile through gritted teeth. Because they're family. Because they mean well. But Ryan wasn't like me, and thank God for that. He raised his glass and said, "I wasn't going to say this now, but I heard what you said about Steve. So let's be clear. He's my son. From today forward, I don't care who shares blood with me or with Diana. I care who shows up. And all I see right now are a bunch of people who think they get to insult a child and still be called family." People went quiet. Like glass shattering quiet. Even the servers stopped walking for a second. Ryan turned to Steve and added, "You belong here more than they ever will." My mother stood up so fast her chair screeched. She demanded to know how he dared talk to them like that. My dad shouted something about disrespect, and after everything we've done. Katie started crying. Ben threw down his napkin like we were in a soap opera. And then I finally stood up too. I didn't ask Ryan to stop. I didn't try to smooth it over. I didn't smile through it. I said clearly and finally, "I don't want to see you anymore." My mother stared at me like I was speaking another language. "We're your parents," she said, like that was supposed to excuse everything. But I didn't flinch. Not this time. I told them they needed to leave. They weren't welcome at the rest of the wedding. I didn't want them near Steve. Not today. Not ever again if they didn't change. And I meant it. They screamed. Ben slammed his fist on the table. Katie yelled at me for choosing a man over my blood. My mom kept shouting my full name like that was going to snap me out of it. But I watched them walk out. Walk out of my wedding, out of my life, and most importantly, out of Steve's. Ryan put his arm around my son. Steve looked up at him and asked quietly, "Did I ruin everything?" Ryan knelt down and said, "No, kiddo. You made this day perfect. We're finally free." And for the first time in hours, Steve smiled again. 3 weeks after the wedding. That's how long it took. I hadn't heard a word from any of them. Not a single text, not even a fake apology. Ryan and I had taken Steve on a short weekend trip after the chaos, just to breathe. I'd been expecting a storm, maybe some kind of guilt bomb or long-winded email from my mom telling me how ungrateful I was. But nothing. Silence. Then on a Tuesday morning I opened the door to get a package and there she was. My mom. Holding her purse like she was dropping by for tea. No call. No warning. No apology. She walked right past me into the house. I didn't even move. I was too stunned. Steve was in the living room drawing. He looked up, saw her, and immediately put his markers down. He didn't say a word. Just walked to his room and shut the door. She didn't even glance at him. She stood in my kitchen like she owned it, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water and casually said, "I need money. Your father and I are looking at a new car. Ours is too small." I stood there trying to process if she actually said that. "No, how are you? No, I'm sorry for what we said to your son." No mention of the wedding, the screaming, the scene she caused. Just, "I need money." Then she added, like it was some kind of reminder, "You've been helping with the house payments and your sister's tuition." So I figured. I cut her off. I asked her why she was here. I told her she wasn't invited, and that if she had nothing to say about what happened at the wedding, then this conversation was over. She rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. We all got emotional. It's over now. Don't ruin your marriage by holding grudges." That word, emotional, like she hadn't looked an 8-year-old in the eye and told him he didn't belong. Like my siblings hadn't sat there nodding. I told her I was done. Not just with her but with all of it. I said I wouldn't be paying for Katie's tuition anymore. I wouldn't be covering Ben's rent like I had been doing behind the scenes. And the house. The one I'd been helping them with since Dad lost his job, that was ending too. She went dead quiet. Then she laughed. He said, "You're bluffing. You wouldn't do that to your own family." I walked to the door, opened it and told her to leave. She stood there trying to decide if I was serious. When she realized I wasn't moving, she finally walked out. But just before she crossed the threshold, she turned and said, "You're choosing some man and a child that isn't even his over the people who raised you. That's what this is." I said, "No. I'm choosing respect. Something you never gave me and you sure as hell never gave Steve." I closed the door. Later that night, I found Steve sitting on his bed with one of the photos from the wedding. Just him and Ryan, both of them laughing. He asked me if Grandma was mad at him. I told him no. I told him she was mad that we didn't let her hurt us anymore. That night, Ryan said something that stuck with me. "Maybe this is the first time she's realizing she doesn't control you anymore. And that scares her more than anything." It started with a text from Katie. First one I'd gotten since the wedding. She didn't mention the scene or Steve or our parents walking out. Just sent a photo of our old backyard, where we used to have birthdays as kids, and said, "Family dinner this Friday. You should come. Bring the boy." The boy. That's what she wrote. Not Steve. Not your son. The boy. I should have ignored it. Ryan told me not to go. He said it sounded off. But something in me still wanted to believe there was a chance, just the tiniest chance, that they felt guilty. That maybe they were finally ready to fix something. So I went. I didn't bring Steve. I told him it was a grown-up thing and he was fine with it. He'd gotten smarter about who deserved his attention lately. I arrived at 6. The front door was wide open. No smell of food, no music playing, just my dad on the couch and Katie in the kitchen tapping on her phone. Ben showed up 15 minutes later in a wrinkled dress shirt, acting like he had somewhere more important to be. My mom came out of the hallway with her usual, "Oh, look who's here" tone and asked if I'd brought Steve. I said no. She rolled her eyes. "So you're still holding on to that?" He wasn't even upset. I didn't respond. I sat down. I wanted to hear what this was really about. Turns out I didn't have to wait long. Katie launched into it first. She said, "We're all really worried about you. You've changed. You're acting like Ryan controls you." Ben chimed in, "It's not healthy to isolate yourself like this. Cutting off your family over one bad night?" Then my mom slid a folder across the table. At first I thought it was paperwork, maybe something about the car. But when I opened it, my heart just stopped. It was a contract. A financial agreement. She wanted me to resume all the payments. My sister's tuition. My brother's rent. The mortgage. It was printed out like a lease agreement, like I was their bank, not their daughter. I looked up and asked what this was supposed to be. My mom shrugged. "We figured this would be easier. You're married now. You both have incomes. This is just structure." Ben added, "You were helping us before. We just want to keep things clear now." Fair. Fair. I asked if any of them had anything to say about what happened at the wedding. About what they said to my child. Silence. Then my dad said, "We don't need to keep talking about that. It's done." And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a peace offering. This was a performance. A family dinner staged to make me feel guilty, backed up with a contract for financial support. They didn't want to make things right. They just wanted their money back. I stood up. Katie told me to stop being dramatic. My mom said, "You can't seriously think you're going to abandon us over some kid you barely raised for 5 years before Ryan came around." That was the last line. I took the folder, tore it in half, dropped it on the floor and told them I was done pretending we were anything but a business arrangement. I wasn't their daughter, I was their aita, and now it was closed. The next move came faster than I expected. 2 days after the so-called family dinner, Ryan got a call at work. It was my dad. He acted like they hadn't just ambushed me with a printed contract. Told Ryan he wanted to talk man to man. Said they were worried about me, that I was under too much pressure and stress, and that they thought it would be good if Ryan met with them, just him. Ryan didn't tell me right away. He went. He met them at a cafe near my parents' house. All 4 of them showed up. My dad, mom, Ben, and Katie. No food on the table, just coffee. They didn't waste time. They told him I'd been emotionally unstable since I had Steve. That I lashed out. That I always played victim. That I was too sensitive and didn't know how to separate real life from family drama. Then they said the quiet part out loud. "We think you should consider what's best for your future, Ryan." Ben said it first. "You married into a mess. We get that you care about Steve, but be honest. This isn't your responsibility." Ryan listened. Quietly. He let them talk. He let them twist the story, make me sound impossible, make Steve sound like baggage. They even suggested I might be manipulating Ryan emotionally to cut them out. And then he dropped it. Ryan looked at my dad and said, "You know what's funny? I already knew everything. About the second mortgage you took out under Diana's name. About the fake co-signature on Ben's business loan. And the tuition bills paid from the joint account she didn't know you had access to." They froze. Ryan kept going. Calm, direct. "You thought she wouldn't find out." He didn't. But I did. Before the wedding. I hired someone to check the finances once we started planning the budget. Because I kept seeing money disappear. And I didn't want to bring it up unless I had proof. He said they went pale. No one said a word. Ryan stood up, tossed a USB drive onto the table and told them everything's on here. I could have gone legal. I didn't. But now I'm thinking maybe we should. My mom tried to recover. Said it was complicated, that it was always meant to be temporary, that Diana was helping the family. Ryan told her flatly she wasn't helping. She was being stolen from. Then he left. He came home and handed me the drive. I had no idea. I knew I'd been covering bills, sure. But I didn't know they'd taken out loans using my name. I didn't know they had access to an account I'd opened years ago for Steve's education fund. I sat there in shock. Ryan sat next to me and said, "They tried to destroy your confidence and manipulate me into thinking you were the problem. They thought they could gaslight both of us. And they would have gotten away with it if I didn't already know who they were. That was when I understood something. They weren't just toxic. They were dangerous. And now they were exposed. I didn't rush it. I sat with that USB drive for 2 days. Looked through every file. Every transaction. Copies of emails, fake signatures, even a scanned document from 6 months before the wedding where Ben had used my information to secure a business loan for a company that didn't even exist anymore. They'd buried it deep. Everything they didn't want me to see. My parents' second mortgage had my name on it. Katie's scholarship was funded through an account I thought was closed. My mother had been telling the family I agreed to everything, that I was the one offering help, all while keeping me in the dark. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. They counted on me never checking, never questioning, always nodding and writing the check. So I didn't scream. I didn't call and start a war over the phone. I sent one message to the family group chat. The one we hadn't used since the wedding. Dinner at my place. Just you 4. Friday at 7. Be on time. That was it. No emojis. No explanations. I wanted them to wonder. They showed up. Not even 5 minutes late. No one looked comfortable. I'd set the table like normal. Food was already out. Steve was at a friend's house. Ryan was home but upstairs. I told them this was just between me and them. The second they sat down, I slid 4 copies of the paperwork across the table. One for each of them. Names highlighted. Signatures printed. Bank activity logged. No one touched their food. Ben tried to laugh like it was overblown. Katie said, "You're seriously acting like we're criminals?" My dad went straight for, "We're family, this could ruin everything." But my mom just stared at me, quiet, studying me like she didn't recognize who was sitting across from her. I told them I wasn't going to the police. Not yet. But I had every right to. And if they ever contacted Steve again, if they ever tried to involve themselves in our lives without a full public apology and repayment, I would. Ben scoffed. Said I was bluffing. So I pulled out my phone and hit play. It was a recording. From Ryan's meeting with them at the cafe. Their voices, clearly discussing how to manipulate him, calling Steve, the boy, again and talking about cutting me off from my own finances. Katie turned white. My dad said nothing. My mom reached for her glass but didn't drink. And then I said it. You all spent years trying to convince me I was lucky to have you. That I owed you. But let me be clear. Steve is the only family I'll protect now. And if you come near him again, if you even try to twist his reality the way you twisted mine, you'll find out just how much I've changed. Silence. No excuses this time. No fake crying. No speeches. I didn't throw them out. I didn't have to. They stood up on their own. No goodbyes. Just the sound of the door closing behind them. Ryan came downstairs 10 minutes later. Found me sitting at the table, the files still open. He didn't ask what happened. Just sat next to me and said, "That's what taking your power back looks like." It took them 3 weeks to try again. No texts, no calls. Just quiet. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe they finally understood I meant what I said. That they couldn't twist this version of me. Then came the envelope. No return address. Hand-delivered. Ryan found it in the mailbox one evening, just tucked in like junk mail. Inside was a card. Gold border. Raised lettering. My mom's handwriting. "Let's start fresh. Sunday brunch at our house. We miss you. Bring Steve." I laughed out loud when I read it. Ryan didn't. He just took the card, set it down on the table and said, "They're not done. They think you'll fold eventually. That you'll want peace badly enough to pretend again." And for a second I did feel it, that old guilt twitching in my stomach. That voice that says maybe they've changed. Maybe it would be easier just to go. But then I looked at Steve. Sitting on the floor with his Lego set, humming to himself, building something. He looked peaceful. He hadn't asked about them once. Not since the last time they walked out of our lives. So I didn't go to brunch. I didn't respond. But I wasn't done. I sent a letter. One copy to my parents. One to Ben. One to Katie. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just wrote the truth. I told them I'd spent years trying to earn their respect, and they had spent years showing me I'd never get it. That every smile had a condition, every favor came with a chain, and every compliment was followed by a reminder of what I owed them. I told them Steve wasn't a footnote in my life. He was my life. And if they couldn't say his name with love, they had no business saying mine. I told them the door was closed. For good. Not locked. Just closed. If someday they wanted to truly make things right, not for money, not for appearances, not for control, but because they were willing to do the work of becoming better people, they'd know where to find me. But until then they had no daughter. Katie tried to message me 2 weeks later. She sent a long paragraph about how Mom isn't doing well, and how the family feels broken without me. I didn't respond. Ben posted something vague online about people forgetting where they came from. I blocked him. My mom sent one last email. One sentence. "So this is how it ends." I read it once, then deleted it. Because no, this wasn't how it ended. This was how it finally began. My life. Our family. One built on truth. One where Steve never has to wonder if he's enough. And one where the people who tried to make him feel like nothing became exactly what they are to us now. Nothing.